Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it is that you are, wherever you may be. Thank you very much for making us a part of your day. I am Brad Frank. I'm a creative content writer here in Chesterfield, and I'm very glad to tell you that Chesterfield Behind the Mic is on the air once again. It has been a pretty banner year for economic development in Chesterfield County, and I thought it was a good time to talk a little bit about that and not only what 2022 has brought, the announcements and the different developments and things of that nature, but also, going into 2023 and what's ahead. So I'm very happy to welcome Garrett Hart, who is the Director of Economic Development here at the podcast. Garrett, how are you, sir?
I am well. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Very much appreciate your time. Obviously, economic development's been pretty busy in 2022. I would say that you probably haven't had a year like this in a long time, if ever. In general, though, before we get into sort of your background and everything, I'm just curious. What is it as you look back on it? What's it feel like to have the year that economic development had? It
has been an exceptional year. Just the volume of really good things that have happened, including the announcements. It's truly one of the, I've been in the business for 40 years. It's probably the best year I've ever had, and most exciting. I've been involved in a lot of good projects, but to have the combination of things go on here.
Right. I think it's also important too, and we'll get to this in a second, just because these things don't happen overnight, right? There's a lot of work that goes into getting things lined up before you can get to a podium where the governor comes and says, "Hey, look, this amazing thing is about to happen." But you mentioned 40 years, Garrett. How for folks who maybe are unfamiliar, how exactly did you get into this line of work? Can you talk to me a little about your background and how you came to be here?
Sure. I graduated college many, many years ago and came out into the middle of a recession. And went to work for the town where I grew up in the county, for the town as the first town manager they ever had.
Okay.
So I was the first town manager they had. It was the first job I ever had. We learned how to do it together. And from there, I became the county administrator of New Kent, and then went on and discovered that I really liked the economic development side of government service.
Right.
And went from that to the Peninsula Economic Development Alliance, which is a regional marketing firm for economic development.
Okay.
And then went into the private sector for 10 years, doing industrial and economic development for the private sector, doing a lot of projects in Chesterfield with McKinney and Company. And then Will Davis, the former director, called one day and said he needed some help and was interested in whether I would come join his team. And I've been here since.
and as they say, that the rest was history, right?
That's right.
In terms of, I know this might sound like a silly question, but I think for some people, the idea of what economic development is can have different meanings. I'm just curious to get sort of your point of view on how you would kind of describe what economic development is and what it means to a place like Chesterfield County.
Sure. There are two major points or missions of economic development. The first is to increase the tax base to pay for public services like schools, fire stations, police, and all the other parks and rec, all the other wonderful things that Chesterfield County supplies.
Right.
So our goal is to increase the commercial tax base so that the burden of paying for all of those things don't fall so much on the homeowner.
Right.
Okay. The second point is to create more and better jobs for the community, so citizens in Chesterfield can get a job in Chesterfield and not have to commute to other areas, and can have opportunity to grow into better jobs.
Right.
And that's really, from my standpoint, it's almost a religious thing. That's what we do.
Right.
And we do it in so many different ways, from entrepreneurial work, from small business work, from going out and marketing and seeking new businesses come in, to working with our existing industries and businesses to make them expand.
Right. Now, in terms of what you guys do, obviously the announcements that were made thus far in 2022, I mean, unless you got something, as we record this here early December, unless you got something up your sleeve for the rest of the year. But yeah, in terms of the announcements that have been made, there are absolutely, game changers for Chesterfield. And I'm curious to get sort of, something like Lego. Let's start there. Obviously, the biggest of big ticket items, Lego is going to bring its first U.S. manufacturing plant here to Chesterfield County, 1.7 million square feet in Meadowville. I mean, give me, in terms of the background on that one, How long did you guys work on that one? And what's it like to bring something like Lego to Chesterfield?
That Lego was actually a fairly quick process as economic development for major projects go.
Right.
It's about 9 months from first working with them through an RFI process, through meeting them, and then through to the announcement.
Right.
So it went fairly quickly. They were Lego is experiencing a tremendous growth spurt in the U.S. Brought on by COVID, but continuing to grow after COVID.
Right.
And they realized to keep up with the demand, they needed another facility, and we're ready to start a facility in the U.S.
Right.
It was very, it moved. They had multiple consultants working on multiple things, so we were answering multiple issues, incentives, location, power. We're doing multiple things at the same time, so that compressed the problem.
Right.
And what we have found, and COVID is part of this, is a company and its consultants will do a lot of work before they get to you about what your community is and what your community can do. And Lego identified the Central East Coast as where they wanted to be. They identified Virginia as a place that offered a good, and then they started looking at localities, along the 95 corridor that could handle it. And because of the commitment of previous boards of supervisors and EDAs and previous, economic development directors, Meadowville was created.
Right.
And we had 340 acres, which was big enough for the project.
Right.
We had the county had spent money to put water and sewer and roads in place, so it was ready to go. So we had a site that met their criteria, including the solar that takes up so much space. So we are beneficiaries of work that has gone on 30 years ago.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, and we had a site. I think the key things with Lego during the process were they wanted a partnership. They wanted people who had the same ideals that they had. They also needed a place where they could do renewable power and solar and
carbon
work
neutral,
with carbon neutral with a company. With a company like Dominion. And then they really loved the Workforce Services Program.
Right.
For Virginia and the community college, Brightpoint Community College, put that together. You add all that up with a site that is a beautiful site, and they fell in love with it the first time they got there.
Right.
They didn't tell us that for a very long time, but they loved the site from the beginning.
That's great. So let's see, $7.1 million annually expected in terms of it'll be basically Chesterfield's largest taxpayer once the facility is operational, and generate more than 3,300 direct, indirect, and induced jobs, nearly 227 million annual wages. In your experience, obviously things have changed over the years, right? We think of manufacturing as being, and I've talked with other guests on the podcast about this in the past, we think of manufacturing being like, smokestacks and, your back hurts and stuff. These are clean facilities where you could literally eat something off the floor kind of stuff. And I'm just curious, in your experience, given the way that things have changed, you bring a company like this in to do a job, the potential for high-paying, good quality jobs that come from this is just, astronomical when you think about just the number of people that it could impact here in Chesterfield.
Yeah, 1,760 direct jobs breeds, another 1,000 indirect jobs, but it does also set the direction of where the labor and wages are going as well, and it's just so much spinoff. So it is a game changer, as you had said earlier, for particularly the area, the Meadowville area, but all of Chester and then Chesterfield. Right. And they are really high quality jobs. Right. People in golf shirts and slacks taking care of the machines that actually do the work. Right. And other than with Lego, they're going to have very unique buildings with solar on top and possibly Lego dragons and Lego planes, around. Other than that, the building is a square box that you could be playing volleyball in. Right. Because we do in the volleyball center at Stonebridge
Yeah.
is an industrial building.
Right.
And there's many industrial buildings in Chesterfield that have sports going on.
Right.
So that's where we've grown to manufacturing being a clean and safe and Chesterfield is known for a long time that manufacturing are good jobs.
Right.
I mean, we've got DuPont. We got one of the largest manufacturing payrolls of any locality in Virginia.
Right.
And that's because we've got generational manufactural
Right.
families and workers.
Right.
So we are aware they are good jobs. They're just getting better.
Right.
But to talk about you from the changes that I've seen, $1 billion projects don't come around very often.
That's true. Yeah.
But there's a lot of those type of projects around these
Right,
days
right.
with semiconductors and data centers.
Right. Right.
But, it's a $1 billion project, and that's big in its own set.
Right.
It's 1,761 jobs. That's great as well. But the real issue is there's not a better brand,
Right.
a more loved brand
Yeah,
in
right.
the world than Lego.
Right. Yeah.
So it has, it has potential to sell Chesterfield to other businesses and to
Right.
people doing tourism
Right.
and wanting to visit and wanting to live here.
Right.
It's the home of Lego.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
And the thing that gets me all emotional is one of the most beloved toys in all the world
Right.
will be made
Right here.
in Chesterfield.
Yeah, that's great. And what's funny about it too, Garrett, is that if this was the thing you had, right? This one thing was the thing you had all year. It would be huge, right? But you still got at Meadowville, you still got Plenty, which is another one I want to talk about. Which for folks who aren't aware of what Plenty is, it's a California-based indoor vertical farming company. So basically, they farm inside, and they've got a whole bunch of slew of patents and all the stuff that the way they do it. But this is 300 jobs, $300 million into the technology park. It's very interesting to think that, like, on the one hand, you've got Lego, like you said, this beloved toy. People around the world are going to use, play, collect, Lego that are built here in Chesterfield. Also, for the Lego people out there, notice I said Lego and not Legos, because that's apparently like a very real thing. But here Plenty is, which is this like cutting edge sort of new technology to farm indoor vertical stuff. And I'm just curious, give me a little bit of background on that and the Civica deal that sort of went with it in
Sure.
July, which was a $27.8 million for a new testing facility. That's a nonprofit generic drug company. So 51 jobs there for R&D in Meadowville. But for that
Sure.
project, how long what was the sort of runway for that?
Just to put all of them together, they're all located in Meadowville.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the benefit of Meadowville being ready for all three of them in common.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that they all have in common is they're trying to create a better world.
Right. Yeah.
Lego's carbon neutral,
Right.
Tree replacement, everything. Plenty is a sustainable way to feed more people, to feed people closer to have their vegetables grown closer to where they live.
Right.
Higher quality, more sustainable, very little water use, reduced trucking and all of that. But Plenty will be the largest vertical farm operation in the United States. It'll be the first at scale vertical farming, growing strawberries in the first building and then greens and so forth. And it's just a unique opportunity to have the first.
Right,
Again,
yeah.
Lego.
First, right.
The Plenty,
Right.
the first operation. It will be a worldwide phenomenon and will grow into other places, but we'll be the first, and we'll be a large part of that growth.
Yeah.
And then you look at Civica, they're a nonprofit. Their goal in life is to create medicines more efficiently, to lower the cost and raise the quality for all of the people in this country.
Right.
And to be the first production scale laboratory to do quality testing and upscaling for that product that the Central Virginia region has gone for because of flow and the development of VCU scientists and fellow Richmond region people. For us to get the first lab and to be part of that foretells the future of the growth of that sector in Chesterfield.
Right.
But they're all just unique projects in their own. Amazing to have them all occur in the same year.
Right.
Plenty took a little bit longer than Lego. We were working them both at the same time, okay, and as well as Civica came in. Civica talked to us early on, but being that they're federally funded,
Right.
they have to move on a federal scale,
Right.
so it took them longer to get to
Right.
the announcement. But we were very quickly the site.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha. So now you're talking another 350 jobs between those projects combined.
Right.
So now we're up to like 2,000 plus. I mean, you're
At least.
talking. I mean, you're talking thousands and thousands of direct. You know, you mentioned indirect. Before we move on to some of the other things, I do also want to mention Spring Rock Green. Collins Enterprises is going to develop initial phase of this residential commercial properties. This mixed use development off Midlothian Turnpike. 33 residential units, 27,000 square feet. Total investment is, I think, $75 million, mid 2024 for completion. Mixed use development, even from my days back when I worked at the newspaper in Hanover, like, was always this thing that people talked about, and now it's this thing that's like really happening, and certainly is a focal point for a lot of different places. What was so important, you think, about Spring Rock Green in this one?
Well, we're coming off the success of Stonebridge,
Right.
which was the first mixed-use development of the Cloverleaf Mall, redo of the Cloverleaf Mall. That worked out very, very well, and went from a taxable capital investment of like 11 million when we
Right.
started to 120 some million dollars in capital investment now, and up and hundreds of jobs.
Right.
Spring Rock Green being right across the street is obviously the next opportunity to do so.
Right.
We were able to reach an accommodation with the owner, who had a rentable mall, but was not encouraged to do what the vision we have
Right.
for that.
Right.
So,
I understand. Right.
But the real driver for all of this, and it's the private sector's doing it, we're doing it, and we're winning, is to attract people to the region.
Right.
And the reason we want to attract people to the region is we want to attract their skills and their talents.
Right.
And Chesterfield has long been a place where people love to live,
Right.
mostly single-family development. But because of our schools and our police and our parks and our libraries, it is a place where people want to raise their family and be. We have long been that. But we have not, until of recent times, had forms of housing that everybody wants.
Right.
Primarily apartments and condominiums and so forth, so the mixed use of houses that we need.
Right.
And we're getting those in a big way right now. But they're most successful when they're combined with a walkable, playable community.
Right.
So that you can come from your apartment or your condo, you can go to dinner and you can walk back home, you can go see a sporting event.
Right.
And in fact, you can, to office. Stonebridge was 2008's version of what mixed use looks like.
Right.
We want to do 2022's
Right.
version of what mixed use, which is going to be
Right.
much more urban.
Right.
It's 1,000 residential units in the total project.
Right.
300,000 square foot of office, 125,000 square foot of retail, and at least 100,000 square foot of some type of event facility.
Right.
Right now we're focused on ice.
Right.
And we're going to proceed with that. And a grand plaza we're calling Celebration Street for people to enjoy and to use. And that is part and parcel to our goal to attract talent.
Right.
When I started in this business, you ran out. I got on a plane and
Right.
went somewhere and tried to bring this company back. The company located, and then people moved in to take the jobs. Other way around completely now. The companies are chasing the talent, so we're in the talent attraction business. So if we
Right.
can attract talents through quality of life,
Right.
we can attract the talent here. The businesses will follow.
Right.
Very, very clearly where we are.
You mentioned a second ago, the idea of looking at for ice and the different events and stuff, and that kind of takes me to sort of like what's ahead. I mean, at this point, we've replaced all the jobs that we lost during the pandemic. We're on the cusp of having the largest workforce in Chesterfield history. We've already got the largest number of businesses in Chesterfield history. I think the number you guys quoted earlier this year was from 9,700 in June 2021 to 10,000 in 200 some in March of 2022.
Right.
So obviously the things are really, things are really cooking, so to speak, right? Sports tourism, obviously a big focal point for your folks, and certainly for the county as a whole, in terms of, there, on the one hand, there's the idea of paying, the tax base, and improving it so that, you can have the services and stuff for residents. Well, this is another way to do that in a different kind of avenue, right? Is that you bring the people in to spend their money while they're here, and then they don't have to go to school here. They don't necessarily need the libraries and stuff, and that's saved for the folks who do live here. How big of an impact does sports tourism have, and what do you see for the future?
Yeah, sports tourism is just it's almost a force multiplier in how it works. It's the tournaments make money and bring people here to spend their money.
Right.
But those facilities are used by Parks and Rec during the week, and when there's not a tournament, by our county citizens.
Right.
So they get to use them, but they're paid for by other people visiting the area.
Right.
So it is really great. And it was over $30 million in direct investment in the county last year.
Right.
And it's just going to continue to get bigger. Parks and Rec is investing quite a bit of money in upgrading the facilities and adding more fields and parking and commissary and so forth.
Right.
I joke with them all the time, because when we first got this started, I joke, that facility is like being in the theme park business. You got to do something different every year. You got to bring the new ride, so it's got to get improved. It's got to get better.
Right.
And with the Genito area plan, focusing on that, with the lake coming on board, expanding the opportunity for people to enjoy their experience when they visit here, and for our citizens to enjoy their experience there. Is going to continue to grow through that plan. The other thing that's going on that's really well is hospitality.
Yeah.
The hotels in Chesterfield are doing really, really well. We'll have a brand new 25,000 square foot conference center with 260 rooms in Stonebridge, breaking ground this fall. We just had a new facility, 5,000 square foot of meeting space in Chester, and those are going to continue to grow. There's more on the line, and a lot of the tax revenue that we get to this county and the region comes from the room taxes.
Right.
So the more rooms we have, the more we'll get to keep in Chesterfield.
Right.
Henrico, having the most number of hotel rooms in the region, is actually benefiting from that tax more than we are from projects and events that we're holding.
Right. Now, you mentioned just a second ago the special focus area plan, and real quick, I just want to get you out here on this one. Obviously 2023 is right around the corner. Upper Mag. A huge development for not just now, but for the future. I'm just curious, in your crystal ball, what does 2023 look like? I mean, you and I talked the other day, and we joked that, anybody who thinks there's going to be another 2022, be careful. There's not a lot of Legos, no pun intended. There's not a lot of Lego lying around, right?
No.
But there's not a lot of companies, that have that much cachet and such. But I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on 2023, Upper Mag, other things coming in?
Sure. We're looking forward to continuing to move Upper Mag into a position where it can be very, very competitive, to move it from what they call a tier 3 to a tier 4 and into a tier 5, so the state can continue to offer it from her. It is clearly one of the finest locations for a fab plant, or a semiconductor fab plant. We have the ability to bring the workforce there. We have the ability to bring the power, water, and sewer to that location. So we're going to continue to move forward in positioning that property to be a real game changer in that industry. The other industry we're particularly interested in comes off of Civica, is the region is going to become a pharmaceutical focus region. So large pharmaceutical manufacturing could go in Upper Mag as well. We are proceeding to do what the zoning ordinance, the process that we said, which is to do a strategic plan, lay it all out, and then start figuring out how to improve it, including the completion of the Powhite Parkway and how all that works out. So we're going to market it while at the same time we're making it better. Very much the Meadowville model. Meadowville was in its time a fab location for
Right.
a fab location. It moved into a multi-tenant park. This park could in the future be a multi-tenant park. Should we not locate a very large, or we've got enough room to locate one very large and a whole lot of people that surround them.
Right.
But we'll continue to position that and add new assets. We didn't do the roads in the beginning of Meadowville. They
Right.
came along, and then the water and the sewer, and you just, with each year, you invest until you've got a product that's better than everybody else's, which
Right.
Meadowville clearly is, and Upper Mag will be.
Right.
And this, in my parlance, it's allowing us, this board of supervisors, this EDA, this Department of Economic Development, to lay the table, set the table for the future.
Right.
So the future guy that's got my position, or lady that's got my position, the future team, the future boards will have something to sell.
Right. Good deal.
And it's something to compete. It's the way economic development is going. Speed and lack of risk are the two key elements.
Right.
And the way you win that game is to own, for the locality to own the land.
Right.
And to be in control of it.
Right.
Yeah. Not to say that we don't have a lot of private sector developers
Right,
doing
right.
a lot of good things out here. There's 5 million square feet of spec development that's going to be constructed in the next 2 years or to 3 in Chesterfield. 5 million square feet of development is it's about one job per 1,000 square feet. That's 5,000 jobs that we know will be created from that process.
Right.
We've been seeing a flourish of spec development, and in fact, I think only one building got completed, got the roof on it before it was 100% leased out. So you build it, they will come. Is the thing.
Yep.
I'd see the small businesses. We're going to continue to work really hard with small businesses. Small businesses struggled during COVID.
Yeah, for sure.
But they got smarter, they got leaner, they got really creative, and they're taking all of that they learned,
Right.
and they're expanding with it. They're repeating it.
Right.
They're doing these things. So we're going to continue to see small business growth and other opportunities for things that we don't have in Chesterfield now, services primarily, restaurants, entertainment.
Good deal.
I'm really excited about the future.
Yeah, I was going to say 2022 was a heck of a year. Sounds like you're going to be just as busy in 2023. So
We're going to keep busy.
find some time to sleep. Garrett, thank you very much for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Look forward to coming back.
All right. Make sure you check us out on social media. On Twitter, it's at Chesterfield VA, and on Instagram, it's Chesterfield, Virginia, all one word. You can also search us out on Facebook. Just search Chesterfield Behind the Mic. Make sure you like that page to keep up with us as we go forward. Now, let me tell you about all the ways you can check us out. You can watch us on our YouTube channel, as well as on our website, chesterfield.gov/podcast. An audio-only version of the show is available there, as well as on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, and a whole host of other services. You can also watch the podcast on WCCT Thursday through Sunday at 7, on the weekends at noon. That's Comcast Channel 98 and Verizon Channel 28. And lastly, you can check out chesterfield.gov/connect with us for more ways for you to get in touch with us and for us to get in touch with you. My thanks to my director, Martin Stiff, our executive producer, Teresa Boniface, and all the crew here from Communication Media for making this possible. And my thanks to you very much for joining us today. So, from all of us here in Chesterfield County, thank you very much for making us part of your day. We'll see you again real soon. Take good care.